Fangs and Infernos, we're firing on all cylinders, man. We're going to bring another one to you right now, man. Favorite of ours. It's been a good one so far. I can only imagine that he's been having a good time because he's showing you right now.
Not at all.
Jon Abrahams is hanging out with us right now.
Yo, what is going on?
So we were able to bring him back because when it comes to most recent movies, of course, with his appearance, he got a little close with a blade at the expense of Art the Clown. And he found a way to crawl his way over to New Jersey HorrorCon.
That's right.
So we're going to get a couple words in edgewise before Art maybe shows up to finish off the job. But,
I mean, you can't get killed twice, so it's really you guys that got to watch out.
All right, fair enough. You know, we'll just we got you, dude.
So he's got to worry about it. I'm a devil, so I can't die. So
we're all dead already. It's good. We're good. We're safe.
It's just a bunch of deadheads.
It's safe.
Jon, thank you so much, my friend, for taking a little bit of time.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
How's New Jersey HorrorCon been treating you this week?
Awesome. So fun. So fun. I did one a few years ago, and I did the Pennsylvania one, and it's always a good time. And, you know, I'm from New York City, and obviously Terrifier is a New York-made movie.
Yep.
And it's just always fun to do festivals and cons in my home tri-state area, if you will. You know, it just feels more familiar to me, and we all speak the same language. So
yeah, and especially after long weekends, of course, with meeting all your fans and all that kind of stuff, being also in a close proximity to home is probably also very appealing as well.
It's very nice. I'm going to stay at my mom's house after this.
Nice. With it being like probably easily the most dominant franchise at this particular moment, how do you look back at Terrifier 3 and your death in that movie? But how was it being involved in that?
Okay, so I'm so proud of it. When I was younger, I wanted to do makeup effects. And my dad used to take me to horror conventions in New York City. So I used to go to like Fangoria conventions and stuff, and follow Tom Savini around and tug on his pants. Be like, hey, mister, can I work for you? You know, and, sure.
Go to my school.
Sure, kid, go to my school. And
Give
then
me some money.
Yeah. And then, you know, many years later, here I am doing cons with Tom. And it's all very cyclical and great. But that's how I met Damien. Originally, met him at NJHC in Atlantic City after the first one had come out. And we just got to talking about stuff, and I was a fan. And, you know, we were talking about makeup effects, and we kind of bonded over that. Kept running into each other at cons. And then finally, about a year and a half ago, we ran into each other at one, and he was like, want to be in part 3? And I was like, yes, whatever you need me to do, I'll do it.
Nice.
And so, boy, did they put me through the ringer.
Yeah.
Because I got, well, spoiler alert, I got my hand nailed down. My other hand, I got my fingers bit off. And then I got my head peeled from the center back. And then a nice double facial all the way down to just being the screaming skull, which is what Damien Leone calls it.
Yeah.
So
a tough day.
I'm the screaming skull, not the streaming skull. I'm the screaming skull.
Screaming skull.
You're like, you want to learn about special effects, kids? We're going to show you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you started as a dentist, and then you ended up as a screaming skull.
Exactly.
No, absolutely, man, for sure. Devil, my friend.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, we're talking about horror movies. We're talking about stuff. We're going back old school because, like I talked to you before, I'm a fan of that. It's an awesome 90s movie. Talk about, like, that's such a crazy and awesome movie, and just, like, dealing with life growing up in the inner city of the 90s. Talk about working with kids and such an ensemble cast who have a lot of those actors and actresses have grown out to be huge.
Yeah, definitely.
So Seven-Tree, you know, you have
Rosario Dawson. Yep. Shout out Leo Fitzpatrick.
Yep.
You
So
know?
how was that like working on a film like that, doing that at such a young age, you know, starting off?
Well, it was bananas. I mean, I was 16 when we shot it, and you know, the rule was no actors, right? No child actors, nothing. So none of us had any experience acting. You know, maybe like outside of school a little bit, but not like working as actors.
Yeah, because my understanding is they also kind of plucked skaters from local around.
Yeah,
that
it was just
like,
basically.
This is that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, when you grow up in downtown Manhattan, anything below 14th Street, everybody meets at Washington Square Park. And so everybody, all of the young people would just hang there after school, during school, whatever. And so you had the skaters and you had the club kids. I was one of them. And, the punk kids and all of it, and but everybody was kind of groovy and cool with each other. So, they just basically like bopped around the village and the park and being like, "Want to audition for a movie? Do you want to audition for a movie?" We're all like, "Okay, sure, whatever,"
Yeah.
But we know nothing about making movies, nothing about continuity, and you got skaters, like pro skaters in the movie. They're going off every time they say cut and skating and like breaking their arms and stuff. Coming back the next day, whole movie takes place in a day. So all of a sudden the guy's like this, and then he's like, got a cast, that was the vibe. But we didn't know it was going to be the kind of preeminent 90s movie about youth culture,
exactly.
such a raw way. I just thought it was like a fun artsy thing to do, and I was interested in movies. I was like, okay, cool, but I had no idea or inkling of like what it would set us all upon. So
I mean, it's crazy as well. Sorry, Devil. But it's crazy as well too, because like that movie, that tackles some heavy shit at a time where people didn't really go there. I mean, the really
especially
underground especially at a teenager level.
Yeah. Sure.
But of course, you have directors that are out there that are more like they'll go places. The Dario Argentos of the world.
Of course.
But at that time, like, you didn't talk about that stuff, let alone put it on film for the world to see.
Definitely.
Yeah, especially with that too. You had that movie and like Bully when you did it. It was like such of those movies where like it was like I said, tackling those things. And like I remember people watching it now that I've showed the younger generation, and even that scene, skateboarding we're talking about, where you beat the living fuck out of the guy with a skateboard, and I'm like, that's the kind of shit that happened. You fucked with us skateboard kids. That's what happened to you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Don't mess with people who have rolling weapons in their hands.
Weapons in our hands that they do some damage. But picking it back now too, back into the horror films. Talk about probably the essential horror comedy parody movie of all times, Scary Movie.
So such a banger.
Yeah.
And I grew up. I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker was like one of my favorite movies. In Living Color was everything for me, and I was just an uber fan of the family. So when the opportunity was presented to me, I was like, say less. Like, where do I sign up?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think at that time, like, there definitely was like a lot of Hollywood people that didn't respect what the Wayans family does and didn't respect the idea of Scary Movie. Yeah. But I was like, how can I be down? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I think I don't take it for granted, and I didn't take it for granted then. Like, I'm working with my heroes right now. And,
exactly.
And it's always been a joy. Like, there's been, nothing bad about it. I love them like my own family.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing phenomenon,
Yeah.
And also at the time, like, we didn't know it was going to be the phenomenon. Right. It was like we all were having such a good time, and it's them. So if you know them, you're like, it's going to be great comedy.
Yeah.
But we didn't know it was going to be the highest grossing R-rated comedy of all time when it came out, highest grossing black film of all time, which is huge back then. And, like, we had no idea that it was going to be the, multi-$100 million mammoth that it is.
And then, like I said, with the continual success of them, now they're bringing back the Scary Movie. It is kind of funny that you talk about where when they originally were going to do it, that they were like, I don't know. And then once it became big, everybody was doing the horror spoofs and stuff like that.
Definitely.
When they found out, this works. Like, Now you're on board.
Exactly.
You were on board 5 minutes ago.
It's like that with everything. Like, honestly, it's like that with Terrifier. Like, for years, I've been telling friends in, Hollywood about Terrifier, and like their business model and all of it, and just how amazing I think it is. And they're all like, what? Oh, yeah, sure. And then, 2 comes out and does the business it does, and then 3 does the business it does, and now everybody wants to make indie horror movies, and they're all like, oh, you Terrifier, I'm like, you didn't even know what that was a month ago,
We literally go back to the Kickstarter of
Terrifier. Right,
and
exactly.
we talk about that too with like cons, like even with the success of Part 2 that was already big, you can meet David and Damien and all those guys. Now, the success of 3, it's insane.
Yeah.
Those guys' lines are like out the wall. They're like Robert Englund's now.
I mean, they are. Art is the new Freddy.
Yep.
Is the new Jason. Is the new Michael Myers. Is the new Leatherface. And it's really cool to end up, being a horror fan my whole life. To end up being part of like a franchise like that. It's
exactly.
a dream, Yeah, it's awesome.
And one of the things, in keeping with the horror aesthetic, that I wanted to ask you about as well is, how do you look back at House of Wax? Because I kind of have sort of a two-part question in this. Is obviously, how is it looking back at House of Wax? But I'm also honestly a little bit curious because, of course, that movie did have Paris Hilton involved when she was very in the public eye. So I'm curious, did that make it difficult at all? Not because you're working with her, but other factors, people around that you maybe are in your way, because she was so out there, her shows and what. I think you know what I mean.
She was as big as it gets in the zeitgeist at the time, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sure Joel Silver was aware of that by marketing the film See Paris Die, right? But we shot in Australia, in Queensland, Australia, in Surfers Paradise, and out there at that time, she was like the Beatles. So, on set, no, I don't remember heightened security and stuff, but like every time we went somewhere, like out at night, they had the whole street closed down on either side with like barricades and hundreds of young people like shouting like the Beatles. Yeah. And I was like, holy, Yeah. So I definitely noticed that impact, and I was like, wow. And I knew Paris before all that, and we're still friends, and she's an amazingly humble person, and a lot of people don't realize that.
I've never heard a bad thing about her.
No,
I really haven't. I mean, when it comes as an outsider, you look at the TV shows, this, and of course they're going to edit it the way they're going to want for it. So it's kind of hard not to look at something at times and be like, oh my God, for real? But then you realize, no, there's so much more that we do not see or know about.
Totally.
Yeah, especially with House of Wax too, where you especially because we always talk to people who've done, movies that were remakes. Were you a fan of the original House of Wax?
I actually was, because
Vincent Price.
Oh, I love it, and a lot of people don't know that Charles Bronson is in that movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
And one of his earlier roles too, I think. But I've always been a fan of the William Castle movies, and so I was psyched as a fan when Joel Silver wanted to reboot. That's what Dark Castle is, right? He remade all the William Castle movies. When I was a kid in New York City, there's a movie theater called Film Forum. Shout out Film Forum. And every summer they had a festival of double header showing of two 50s B horror movies or horror movies, and they would show all the William Castle movies with the gimmicks. So they would do 13 ghosts, and the ghosts would fly across the audience, and the tingler, and the seat would tingle whenever it came on screen, and all that stuff. And I was young then. I was 10 or 11, and I became familiar with all the William Castle movies then. So when I was like, wow. But I think House of Wax is really great because it has nothing to do with the original. Yeah. It's not trying to take the original and remake it. It's a whole new ideal of House of Wax, and it really succeeds, in my opinion, for that. Whereas, at that time, they remade Texas Chainsaw, and, all of those movies, and they just kind of did shot-for-shot remakes, and they're not as good. Yeah. They're just not as good. Yeah. But I think House of Wax actually has a soul as its own movie.
When it comes to those ones, especially with Vincent Price, I put those up as the remake ones with your the House of Wax and House on the Haunted Hill. Yeah. You know what I mean? Those were so good, but they weren't trying to be shot for shot, like you said. They were doing something.
Not reinventing the wheel.
They're reimagining of what those films could be. Yeah.
And one of the crazy things too about House of Wax is of course people marketed that way, but also people remember the impaling of Paris. But dude, for me, That fucking Clippers scene of the poor girl's
Oh my
fingers
God.
up through the grate. Oh my
Or
God.
what about the Achilles
And
tendon?
the Achilles,
That gets me every
and
time.
anything involving an Achilles tendon.
It's the worst.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. And one other thing that we definitely want to have a little bit of fun with, because it seems that you are no worse for the wear, coming back from military school after Dad
That's right.
sent you off to military school.
Sent me
So
off.
talk a little bit about working on
Meet
that
the
movie.
Parents.
You got it, because of course, amazing cast.
Amazing cast. We should note that this year is the 25th anniversary of Scary Movie and Meet the Parents.
Oh wow! I didn't realize they came out the same year. Actually.
Yeah, and I think they're both getting new movies, so we're happy about that. And yeah, you know, that was a dream come true too, right? It's like a bunch of people that I grew up idolizing and watching and knowing of, and then all of a sudden you're working with them. Like I'm this close, and you know, it can be intimidating, but like luckily for me, I was playing such a cocky kind of character that like I just went all in on that, and you know, would fuck with them all the time, and yeah, they liked it, I think. So
Do you still have your little Kim poster?
with a PH.
Yeah, I mean, especially like you said, you know, growing up as a New York kid and then being able to work with De Niro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's like, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in.
For sure.
I'm right next to this guy. Like,
For sure. And you know what, like again, normally you say don't meet your heroes.
Yeah.
It doesn't work out good. And that can be true. But in my experience on Scary Movie and on Meet the Parents, not true at all. Like just everybody was super lovely and down to just have fun and create something. And another one where obviously you got all these legends and you know this is going to be funny and great, but we didn't know it was going to be the success. I didn't, you know, it's never a sure thing. And that movie is a freaking phenomenon. I mean, it's just a staple in everybody's household, no matter where you are. And they watch it, you know, a couple times a year. So it's cool.
Absolutely, for sure. But
Yeah.
John, thank
Man.
you so much, brother.
Thank you, brother.
You know, we really hope you had a good
meet
time
you.
and enjoyed yourself. It's been an absolute pleasure. Fangs and Infernos, thank you guys so much. We're going to see what we put together with you for the rest of New Jersey HorrorCon. But as always, it's been a great one, man. I'm Vampire, he's Devil, but he is Jon Abrahams.
See ya!
Horns up. Fangs out.
Peace!